in between Cambridge is in Dorchester County on the eastern shore of Maryland. So Harriet Tubman walked from Dorchester County through Caroline County into Delaware, through Delaware, crosses the line at Kennett Square in Pennsylvania. Doesn't realize she's free because we're below the Mason-Dixon line with all this slavery stuff. Although they had it in the north. I don't talk about it much, but that's a whole other story. Then she gets to Philadelphia and she's a free woman. We know that the Underground Railroad didn't start, and from my readings, it didn't start on the Eastern Shore. It started somewhere in Tennessee, right by the Ohio River, in 1831, thereabouts. There was an enslaved man named Tish Davids. He's running from his enslaver, and he jumps into the Ohio River. And the enslaver says, "My God, he must have gone underground." And that's where they go. Now we know that Kitty. Yes. So, and the Quakers were very instrumental. Although, the enslaved people went as far south as Mexico and north to Canada, west to Utah. There's many trails. You've got there are trails all over the place that we're now discovering. But we know Harriet Tubman so well because she is the only one that we are aware of that comes back 13 times to Cambridge, to Dorchester County, and she helps 70 people get to freedom. She walks 70 people to freedom. 70 more she helps with the trails. The Underground Railroad is a system of people, places, and codes. So it's a very organized route. It's not, it wasn't something that just developed. It was well thought out. It had been in existence for many years before Harriet Tubman took her first walk in 1849 at the age of 27. She had been enslaved on 2 plantations, the Thompson's plantation and the Rhodes plantation. As a little girl from very young, she was age 5, she got whipped often. She was a little woman of 5'2", but very defiant. She just abhorred this notion that she should be enslaved and beaten and watched her brothers and mother work endlessly, and they didn't get their wages. And from very young, that didn't work in her mind. At age 13, what started her whole mission to find freedom and what empowered her was when she was hit in the head at age 13. She had gone into a store on the Eastern Shore called the Bucktown Store. Bucktown Store is still there. The building is still there. It's been completely restored. And the Meredith family still owns the Bucktown Store. Cambridge has a long history of they're the descendants of slaves and the descendants of enslavers. But she gets hit in the head, and she develops something called narcolepsy, epilepsy. And what began to happen to her after that hit in the head that didn't kill her, it should have killed her. What saved her life was she hadn't combed her hair until she was 18. And so she had full hair. And she wrapped it in cloth made from flaxseed. And so her head at the time was very padded. So that 2-pound weight was hurled at her. She was trying to help an enslaved boy that was running her. The enslaver calls out to Harriet, grab him. She didn't grab him, she guarded him. A little woman at 5'2", just strong, tough, and she guarded him, and she took the blow to the head. After that blow to the head, she would frequently fall out, and she'd have, during these periods of this epileptic fit, she would have visions of freedom, being north, and being out of this system of slavery. So she continues on with her life. She meets a free man named John Tubman. The interesting thing about the state of Maryland, unlike the far south, is Maryland didn't have the big cotton crops that happened to be the 4th largest industry in the world during the time of slavery. So what they had some tobacco, certainly fishery, and boats because of its proximity to the Chesapeake Bay. Cambridge is surrounded by the Choptank River, named after the Choptank Indian. That's a whole other story, how the English came in 1668 and killed all the Indians. Those that they didn't kill were moved farther east. But the enslaved people there were skilled. Growing up as a child, I was taught that the people were brought from Africa and they had no skills. They were specifically taken from countries in West Africa because of their skills, because because of their ability to cultivate crops. So, as I said, in Maryland, we had tobacco, fish, boat making. But the biggest money maker for the enslavers was to rent the slaves out. And then breeding. In 1808, slave ships were not permitted in the United States any longer, so Maryland was a breeding ground. They would breed the slaves and then sell them. So consequently, because of the renting of the enslaved people, or the renting of property, Harriet Tubman, her family, and those enslaved on these plantations and farms, they were walking all the time between these plantations. So they were taking in the atmosphere, the environment. They knew the land, they knew the trees and the roads and the forest areas. So they learned it. So all the while they're working and singing. It's not about being happy with what you're doing. It's about a way to get the heck out of there. And that's why the Underground Railroad was so successful. Coupled with the fact that in Caroline County, a large majority of the African American people were free. They were free because of their skills and their ability to make boats. So this route, as I said, it was station houses, places, people, free people as well as Quakers and the code stores. So there were